Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Chiron, square, opposition, or inconjunct one's natal Saturn. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Chiron, it can be about physical and emotional wounds and suffering, depleted self-worth and self-esteem, and also helping and healing others. Now, in transit, Chiron is basically making an adverse aspect to natal Saturn. Well, I'm going to elaborate on that. When I say basically adverse aspect, okay, squares and oppositions in astrology, of course, those aspects are negative and adverse. Now, when you have the inconjunct aspect, the inconjunct aspect is neutral, but neutral aspects can have good and bad qualities, coupled with the fact that an inconjunct can often require an adjustment or transition. So basically, collectively, I do see this as an adverse transit. Now, anyway, when transit Chiron is basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Saturn, well, it may manifest in physical and emotional wounds and suffering, depleted self-worth and self-esteem, and helping and healing others. These things could conflict with your career. At this time, of course, naturally, if you have a physical injury, you sustain something pretty serious as far as a physical injury goes. This could be obviously something where it could impede your career naturally, regardless of transits, but it might be more intensified during this time on average as opposed to many other transits. Now, another thing it could also be where some physical related matter might be exacerbating something else, or might be causing some kind of making you feel more despondent or depressed than usual. It can be a situation too. I mean, when you have this transit too, a physical or emotional suffering might require more laborious work, or if you're trying to help and heal others at this time, it might require, it might be more of this effort, whether it's physical or it's emotionally stressful at this time. Say if the transit of Chiron can is in Pisces, it's in the 11th house. It could be helping a friend, some kind of betrayal of friendships perhaps, or maybe helping them sort out confusion in terms of their future and their goals and aspirations. Try to give them direction where it might seem directionless, or the future might just simply seem nebulous or unclear to these people. And it might be something that might require more of a laborious effort at this time, more so than usual, because again, you're talking about transit Chiron basically making collectively an adverse aspect to natal Saturn. Now, the thing is too, you have Saturn is also connected with responsibilities. So when you feel, if you're going through any physical suffering at this time, it might feel more like a greater responsibility at this time, and it might be difficult to either see it like that or to cope with it at this time. And the thing is too, and if you're going through, if there's physical or emotional suffering, this is something where it might be harder to take care of responsibilities more so than usual at this time. Say if Saturn is in Scorpio, it could be something with insurance or tax related matter, or wills, or trying to deal or cope with a crisis at this time. Those can be responsibilities as an example. And the thing about this too is Saturn is also about restrictions as well, and it could be where there might be certain restrictions in your own life at this time that might be causing more suffering. If you Chiron is about depleted self-worth and self-esteem, and if you have any kind of limitations or restrictions, it might hurt more at this time. I would say one is not helping the other basically when you have this transit. And the fact that Saturn is also it's connected with chronic illnesses, these things can cause more suffering at this time. If you have say natal Saturn is in Cancer, it could be something with the chest, breast, the stomach, the ribs, some situation with water retention. Maybe it's exacerbated at this time, or it's just harder to cope with. Also, anatomically speaking, Saturn is connected with the knees, the bones, the joints, the hamstrings, and the gallbladder. So it can be a time where there may be more suffering in connection with this, more so than usual. Or if you have some other physical related matter. Remember that Chiron is connected with physical and emotional wounds, and physical wounds, it is possible, of course, to have two physical related matters to contend with simultaneously. And in some cases, like I was stating before, you could have one that could exacerbate the other. I'd say there's something with, and you gotta confer this on the internet if I'm not mistaken. Like, for example, like if you have the transit Chiron being in Pisces, that's connected with the feet and the toes. If I'm not mistaken, in some cases you could have a problem with that, and somehow it can be interconnected with like a spleen issue. If I'm not mistaken, that would be Virgo, that you would have an opposition. Say transit Chiron was opposing your natal Saturn in Virgo, and you had transit Chiron in Pisces, you could have some issue, I believe, with the feet. It's either the feet or the spleen or even intestines or pancreas, but you got to check that on the internet and confirm, because I don't remember, honestly don't remember that 100%, but I know that there was something with the feet or the toes that could exacerbate something. I believe that is Virgo, Virgo related. So anyway, now another thing too is that also, I mean, when you have this transit, keep in mind that Saturn is also connected with the father and older people. So your own personal suffering, may challenge matters pertaining to these people at this time. Taking care of them, if you're taking care of let's say it's a debilitated father or older person at this time, it might be a time where it might be more of a strain on you. Maybe somehow it's causing more emotional suffering if you're having to deal with this, and depending on the situation with these people, how bad it is, how traumatic. If somebody is really deathly sick, naturally that could take more of a toll on you, more so emotionally than usual. It can be a time too where your own, it could be feelings of it could be diminished self-worth, might be challenging activities with these people at this time, and you might not feel like doing anything with them because of you might be down on yourself at this time. Now, another way this transit may manifest, it could be there may be difficulty in helping and healing others due to career-related matters. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Saturn is in Aquarius, it could be some career-related matter connected with computers or aviation, meteorology, astronomy, or astrology, as some examples. Also, too, physical and or emotional wounds may make it difficult to actually take care of responsibilities at this time. It might be more of an arduous task to do so than usual. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Saturn is in Leo in the 8th house, it might be maybe some emotional suffering due to maybe an extravagant, or I'm sorry, I should say that, let me be kind and rewind again. Physical and emotional wounds, physical and or emotional wounds and suffering might make it difficult to take care of responsibilities. If the natal Saturn is in Leo in the 8th house, those responsibility may have to take care of an extravagant, which is Leo, credit card, which is 8th house bills at this time, or maybe there is an exorbitant, tax-related matter or insurance-related matter that needs to be taken care of, and it might be harder, And if you're dealing with some other, something, physical or emotional wound suffering at this time, naturally it might make it harder to focus on these things. Hold on a moment, people. Also, too, depleted self-worth or self-esteem may adversely affect activities with the father or older people. Let's say, for example, if the natal Saturn is in Gemini, it could be things associated with manual dexterity, such as auto, refrigeration mechanics, or repair. It could be short journeys. It could be communications in general. And also, too, the pain that runs deepest, which is Chiron, may have a negative impact on laborious efforts of trying to, do laborious work at this time, which is Saturn. Let's say, for example, if transit Chiron is in Taurus in the 6th house, it could maybe it has something to do, with issues of, could just be issues of self-worth in general, which is Taurus, as a worker, which is connected with the 6th house as an example. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.